Picture this. It's 1857. A single spark is about to ignite a firestorm across India, threatening to burn down 100 years of rule by the British East India Company. And we're not just talking about a mutiny here. This was a moment that literally shook an empire to its very foundations.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it all kicks off with an act of defiance. A simple refusal, really, that's going to spiral into a massive rebellion, challenging the most powerful trading company the world had ever seen.
All right, let's really break this down because the timeline here is just wild. Look how fast this all happens. On April 8th, one soldier, Mangal Pandey, is executed. Just about a month later, on May 9th, 85 soldiers are thrown in jail for a protest. The very next day, their comrades storm the prison and free them. And the day after that, they're in Delhi, the capital, and the rebellion is in full swing. The speed is absolutely staggering.
And that just begs the question, right? How on earth did 100 years of company rule just completely unravel in a matter of days? To get that, we've got to look at the powder keg the whole situation was sitting on. Yeah, this rebellion absolutely did not come out of nowhere. This was the result of decades, literally decades, of simmering anger and frustration bubbling up across every single part of Indian society. Okay, so let's start at the top of the food chain. You've got the traditional rulers, right? The Nawabs and the Rajas. Well, they were watching their power, their authority, their honor just get systematically dismantled. Their armies were being disbanded, their lands taken bit by bit. The company was even making plans to just end the Mughal dynasty. They took the king's name off the coins, and they refused to recognize heirs, like with the famous Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi. They were being erased. And that anger, it wasn't just at the top. It was trickling all the way down. Peasants in the countryside were getting crushed by crazy high taxes and harsh collection methods. You have one bad harvest, you can't pay, and boom, you lose the land your family has farmed for generations. And here's the crucial link. Many of the company's own soldiers, the sepoys, they were these peasants. They came from these villages. So the anger of the farmer became the anger of the soldier. Now, this is where things get really fascinating, because it's all about perspective. On one hand, the British are thinking, hey, we're bringing in modern reforms, we're stopping sati, we're promoting education. But on the other side, many Indians are looking at the exact same things and seeing a full-on assault on their culture, their religion, and their social norms. When the British passed a law allowing Christian converts to inherit family property, it was seen as a direct attack, a way to encourage conversions. So you've got all this tension, right? All this built-up anger just waiting for something to set it off. And this was the spark, the greased cartridges. The rumor spread like wildfire. The new rifle cartridges had to be bitten open and they were greased with cow and pig fat. For a Hindu sepoy, the cow is sacred. For a Muslim sepoy, the pig is unclean. Forcing them to violate their deepest religious beliefs, it was the ultimate insult. It was the one thing that united them all against their commanders. All right, so the spark was lit in Meerut. The fuse is burning. Now let's watch how that initial fire turns into an absolute inferno, spreading from a military mutiny to a rebellion of the masses. And this right here really drives home the sheer scale of what was happening. This wasn't some localized problem. I mean, look at this. You had charismatic leaders popping up all over northern and central India. You had Nana Sahib in Kanpur, Rani Lakshmi Bai in Jhansi, each one leading the fight in their own part of the country. The moment the rebels took Delhi, wow, it was like a dam breaking. All across the country, entire regiments mutinied and started marching to join them. And what's really key here is that it wasn't just soldiers anymore. Suddenly, you've got everyday people, landowners, craftspeople, farmers, all rising up together. This was now a popular uprising. Now, you can bet the East India Company was completely stunned by this, but their shock turned into action, fast, and their response was organized, methodical, and just absolutely brutal. So what was the company's game plan? Well, it was a pretty cold and calculated three-step process. First, bring in a flood of reinforcements from England. Second, pass new laws that basically let them convict and hang rebels with very little process. And third, start a systematic campaign to take back the major cities one by one. They went for the symbolic heart of the rebellion first, Delhi. And after a long, brutal siege that just tore the city apart, they recaptured it in September of 1857. And once Delhi fell, you could really feel the tide start to turn. The next major target was Lucknow, another huge center of the revolt, and they took it in March of 1858.
After that, it was like dominoes. One by one, the key leaders of the rebellion started to fall. The legendary Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai, was killed in battle that June, fighting for her kingdom to the very end. And then there was Tantia Tope. This guy was a brilliant general who'd been fighting a guerrilla war for months, but he was finally captured and executed in April 1859. And really, his death signaled the end of any major organized fight. And for the final nail in the coffin, the last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar. He wasn't treated as royalty, but as a criminal. He was put on trial, sentenced to life in prison, and exiled. Just like that, a dynasty that had ruled for centuries was gone. So the rebellion was crushed. But make no mistake, nothing was ever going to be the same again. Let's talk about the aftermath, because the impact of this event would change the future of India forever. Think about it. This whole revolt showed Britain and the entire world that the East India Company just couldn't handle India anymore. They came so close to being completely thrown out. It was a massive wake-up call. The era of a private company running a subcontinent was over. From now on, the British Crown would rule directly. So that leaves us with a huge question. How do we look back on 1857? Was it simply a mutiny, a chaotic mess of different uprisings that just happened to occur at the same time? Or was it something more? Was it, as many have called it, the very first unified struggle for freedom, the first war of Indian independence? That's a question that's still debated today, and it really makes you think about what it takes to start a nation's fight for its own future.